Hey everybody, welcome to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Happy New Year to you all. It's going to be a great 2020. And starting off the new year, I want to talk in detail about some strategies to help you overcome the bomb you probably just dropped on your body during Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's holidays. So we're going to be talking all about the top 7 detox strategies tonight. Before we get into those strategies, though, you know the drill. Chime in, say hello, give me a thumbs up, give me a love sign. Tell me where you're tuning in from in the world. That feeds me and I'll feed you. So again, tonight we're talking about the top 7 strategies for you to implement so that you can have a healthy start to 2020. And these are detoxification strategies. So we're talking about detox here. And again, and this is, a big part of detox is necessary for a lot of people after the holidays. There's a lot of reasons why. Some of you may have eaten, pristinely through the holidays, kept your gluten and grain-free diet, kept your diet processed food free, but maybe like myself, just overindulged, ate too much, or ate a lot of food. And so sometimes in that process of overeating, we end up needing to compensate for that. And there's a measure behind this. The feast or famine, which you've probably heard that saying before, actually comes a large part from human evolution. As we evolved, we had opportunities to eat massive quantities of food, and then we'd have periods of famine. And so our bodies, in a large part, evolved with that methodology. So during the holiday time, again, if you overeat, now it's time to implement detoxification strategy number 1. And it's actually 2 parts, but I'm going to label it in such a way. So part 1 of strategy number 1 is called a flush. And what we're really trying to accomplish with a flush is, so again, there's going to be 2 types of you listening tonight. Maybe some of you listening tonight are tuning in for the first time. You're just trying to find your way, your road back to health. And this message, this news, this information is new to you. And many of you are veterans tuning in tonight. You've already followed the no grain, no pain lifestyle, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm talking to both of you tonight. So if you were the type that ate well but overate, the flush is important. If you were the type that ate a lot of food that wasn't good for you, ate a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugars, a lot more than what you should, and you overate, this is even more important for you to pay attention to and listen in on. So the flush itself is designed, in a sense, to give you a reset. A lot of times what happens, especially in females, more in females than in males, is we get a constipation effect after overeating and after eating a lot of processed food. So the bowels just kind of slow down and go on lockdown. And one of the reasons why is during the holiday season, the combination of stress and overeating shuts down the bowels, activates the sympathetic nervous system, and just shuts down the bowels. So we get this kind of constipation of all this food is in us. It's not moving through us effectively. It's just kind of stagnant, sitting there in our GI tracts, basically creating a putrefaction effect. So the food is sitting in us, and in essence, it's rotting. It's rotting inside of us, and it's not going anywhere because we're constipated. So the flush helps to reset those of you who have that particular problem. So the flush is really important if you struggle with the constipation side of things. So if your bowels are not moving, the flush is really the best way to start step 1 of these 7 strategies. So what is a flush? We're talking about using vitamin C. Why vitamin C? Because vitamin C has anti-inflammatory properties. Vitamin C has detoxification properties. Vitamin C helps to boost glutathione. Vitamin C helps to heal the gut when it's inflamed. There are a lot of different components and a lot of benefits to vitamin C, which is why I like to use it for a flush. One of the other impacts, though, is that vitamin C works when we get the doses high enough in the GI tract. It works as an osmotic. So what it does is it pulls water into the bowel. So if you're constipated, it's going to pull water into the bowel, and it's going to help flush the bowels out and alleviate yourself of a number of different toxic compounds that you may have been eating. So let's talk about what a vitamin C flush might look like. So to do a vitamin C flush right, first thing you need to understand about vitamin C is most forms are made from GMO corn. So we don't want GMO corn-based vitamin C. when we're trying to do a flush. We don't want to put poison in to get health out, right? So we've got to be particular about the vitamin C that we use. I have a particular brand that I like to use called Detox C, which is actually from an organic African wild potato, and it is not GMO, and it has 0 corn in it, and it's not the kind of potato that would be classified as a nightshade, so it's safe for those of you who are trying to follow an autoimmune type of protocol. But the best way to do this is not with pills, it's to use a powder. So it's a vitamin C powder. Powder dissolves easier. You can take it in much higher doses to generate a flushing effect. So think of it like this. I'll give you kind of 2 strategies with this. Strategy number 1 is if you're in reasonably good health, then you would start with 1 teaspoon of vitamin C powder mixed in about 3 ounces of water. And you do that every 15 minutes. Now, you're going to do this flush first thing in the morning, and you want to make sure that your stomach is empty and that you haven't eaten. In essence, you're in a fasted state. You haven't eaten for, at least the length of time from the night before. Because if you eat a big breakfast and then attempt to flush, what you're going to do is you just irritate your bowel lining. You're just going to irritate all that food that you just ate is just going to come out of you undigested and irritate your gastrointestinal lining. So you want to make sure, again, before you start a flush, that it's first thing in the morning on an empty stomach and that you don't have any plans. So no plans, because you're going to be on the toilet for a little while. That's what the flush is we're flushing out your bowel. And so if you start a flush and you've got bosses and coworkers and everything else, it's not a good recipe. We want to make sure you can stay at home to do this. So no plans, first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. You take 1 teaspoon of vitamin C mixed in 3 ounces of water every 15 minutes. Now, if you're in bad health, if you're in a bad way and you've got if you've been to multiple doctors and you've got multiple autoimmune diagnoses and you're feeling really, really terrible, you can start this, instead of using 1 teaspoon of vitamin C in 3 ounces of water every 15 minutes, you can double that. You can take 2 teaspoons. Now, what is this equivalent to? This is 1 teaspoon of pure ascorbate powder is worth about 3 grams of vitamin C, whereas 2 teaspoons is double it, right? It's 6 grams of vitamin C. So kind of doing your math there, depending on what vitamin C you use, these are kind of quantitative dosing strategies that can be used. So again, 1 teaspoon or 2 teaspoons. Now, a caveat, if you've got an ulcer, this is a bad idea. Don't do this if you've got an ulcer. If you've got an ulcer in your stomach or an ulcer in your intestine, you don't want to attempt to flush, because the vitamin C, the mixing in the vitamin C on top of an ulcer can create irritation of an ulcer, and it can really make it very uncomfortable. Another strategy kind of before you get into this is if you have severe hemorrhoids. If you have severe hemorrhoids, a vitamin C flush might irritate those hemorrhoids, make them get larger, and make them more irritative. So if you've got hemorrhoids or if you've got a major problem with an ulcer, this is probably not the best strategy for you. I'll talk about it. Hang with me if you do have those problems, because I'm going to talk about other strategies that you can do that are safe for you. But if you've got those issues, vitamin C flush is not recommended. Now, so again, if you're in general good health, 1 teaspoon vitamin C powder mixed in 3 ounces of water every 15 minutes. You do this for 4 doses. So you get 4 doses in. And if you're at 4 doses and your stomach hasn't started to rumble and gurgle, at that point, you're 4 doses in, you double it to 2 teaspoons. And you keep going every 15 minutes. Then what will happen is you'll get to a point where your bowels will start to flush. Basically, you'll run to the toilet and you'll have diarrhea. And that's at that point, you stop taking any more vitamin C and let your bowels run their course. They're going to flush out, and it's probably going to take you a couple hours to really get this thing complete. For most people, a flush from start to finish takes less than 4 hours. But my recommendation is always plan on the side of that being longer, because you don't want to have, let's say you wake up at 8 a.m. and you've got an appointment at 1 p.m. You don't want to be like pushing it. You know what I'm saying? So again, plan your day around the flush. Don't plan the flush around your day. So 3 grams. If you don't, after 4 doses, if you're not getting that gurgling or rumbling in your GI tract, then you're going to double to 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes until you have a flush. Now, if you start at 2 teaspoons, stay at 2 teaspoons all the way through. The average person in good health is going to flush at about 24 grams. This is been my experience clinically and working with thousands and thousands of people. The average chronically sick person is going to flush anywhere between 36 and 50 grams. So we want to, and again, you may not fall exactly into either one of these categories. Everybody's flush is their own unique experience, but I'm just trying to give you kind of my experience of expectations of what I typically see. So again, good health, we'll abbreviate that, and then chronic illness. Okay, good health, start at 1 teaspoon, double to 2 teaspoons after 4 doses if there's no gurgling or rumbling. The chronic illness, 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes until your bowels flush out. Once you flush out, you're done. Now, a couple of things to understand at the end of the flush, a couple of different scenarios. Number one, you might feel really tired. And this is why I want you to plan the flush that you have the whole day. Because if you feel really tired, the best thing that you can do at this point is take a nap and sleep and rest. Okay. Number two, some people feel super energetic after a flush. Like they're ready to go run a marathon. They feel really, really, charged. I would say either way is not a wrong experience or a bad experience. It's just your experience. But those are the two kind of primary outcomes that we'll see. Somebody will feel really energetic or somebody will feel really tired. The important thing to remember the rest of the day after your flush is that you hydrate, is that you're making sure you're taking in plenty of fluids and keeping your body hydrated, because when you do a flush, we're pushing water out of you too, and that can cause dehydration. We don't want you to get dehydrated. So this is phase one, or tip or strategy one, which is the flush. And this is the best way to start, again, unless you have major hemorrhoids, ulcers, or some other contraindication. And again, those types of things we can skip step one and we can go to step two. And the step two is the second F in this series, and that is to fast. Now, why does fasting work so well as part of a detox? See, a lot of people right now are doing the wrong things in this world of detox. They're running and they're buying all these detox kits with all these different supplements online, and they're going to do all these different, milk thistle or these other things that help flush the body, but they're not doing the core strategies. The fast is one of the most fundamental strategies you can implement to actually reset your body. Now, there are different strategies behind fasting. The one I recommend that you start with. Now, there are contraindications to fasting as well. If you're type 1 diabetic, obviously, you've got to watch your sugars, and fasting may not be the best move for you without medical supervision. So get with your doctor before making that attempt if you have a medical condition where your blood sugars are not super stable. But if you don't, fasting works extremely well. And so what I like to see people make an attempt to do is the 24-hour fast. Now, the 24-hour fast is not the most powerful fast, but if you've never fasted before, it's going to be powerful enough for you to benefit from this strategy. You will get some cellular regeneration. You will get some autophagy that occurs, which is basically cells becoming renewed even within 24 hours. But the biggest thing is again, we're talking about strategies after over-consuming or after consuming food that potentially has been hurting you. What we're doing here is we're giving the GI tract a full 24 hours to rest, to take a vacation. Now, remember, your gut, the cells, the lining of your gut is brand new every 2 days. So we're giving the half of the time necessary for your GI lining to completely turn over. We're giving the rest for that. Now, some people say, well, I feel really good after a 24-hour fast. Can I keep going? And the answer to that is yes. I would say you could go up to 3 days. Now, my advice to you, if you get really beyond 2 days, you should probably be working with a medical practitioner, somebody who's experienced in this, who could guide you through any of the problems or pitfalls involved in a longer fast. But a 24-hour fast is very safe. And the average person can do this one very, very easy, and there are tremendous benefits. 48-hour fast is very safe. It's when you start getting longer into some of these longer fasts that you probably really want to work with a functional medicine practitioner to help guide you through the process and make sure that there are no other pre-existing medical conditions that might prevent you from having a good experience with this. But consider the 24-hour to 48-hour fast. So 24 to 48 is very safe. 3 days or more, you're going to consider working with a provider. Work with somebody. Now, some people will do an intermittent fasting strategy where they're more specifically, they're not going 24 hours without eating. They're just choosing to eat within a smaller window of period. So they may not fast a full 24 hours, but they'll fast 16 hours and then have an 8-hour window of eating. Or they'll fast 20 hours and have a 4-hour window of eating. Those are not going to be as effective if you're really trying to do a reset. We got to push it into that 24-hour and beyond if we're really trying to get a good detoxification reset. So my advice is, if you're thinking about doing this and you've never done it, start with the 24-hour. If you do really well with the 24-hour and you just don't want to go to the 2 to the 3 day fast, consider doing a 24-hour fast 1 to 2 times per week for several weeks. Now, you won't put yourself in any major danger of becoming too frail or too thin. A lot of people, you have to remember, a lot of people have the attitude that 3 square meals a day or 6 meals a day is super critical, super important. That if you deviate from that, you'll lose too much weight, or you'll become unhealthy, or you become malnourished. It's not going to happen with a few days of fasting, folks. Fasting, all the biggest things going to happen with fasting is if you're used to eating food all the time, is you might get some low blood sugar, you might get a headache, you might be uncomfortable, and your stomach might growl. But all those things you can kind of work your way through emotionally, and you can work your way through psychologically. But you can do this strategy again. Let's say you're starting off your new year and you don't want to do the full 3 days. You can fast one day this week and then choose another day next week to do a 24-hour fast, and choose another day the following week to do a 24-hour fast. So you can stack fasts over weeks accumulatively and still have a really great effect. Now, if you want to do longer than that or more than that, you've got to be real cognizant and real careful. And I'd recommend that you work with somebody when you get to those fasts beyond 3 days. Okay. Now, fasting, let's talk a little bit about what that means, because some people, some of the questions that come in are, can I have liquids? Of course you can have liquids on a fast. We're talking about water fasting. We're talking about, and some people want to know about things like broth. Like would broth work on a fast? If you're doing a true water fast, which is what I recommend if you're trying to do a reset to detox, then that means I don't recommend any fluids that have caloric value to them. So, that's where the next question will, some people say, well, what about tea? Can I drink green tea during fast? Yes, you can. There's no caloric value to green tea. So you can add liquids that don't have caloric value, that are not going to stimulate the digestive processes to any great degree. Because remember, the point of a fast is we're trying to tell the GI tract that it can take a vacation and heal and repair and begin the process of autophagy, where that cell lining can repair itself and regenerate appropriately. So we don't want to put food substrates on it that are going to make that GI tract work too aggressively. So liquids are primarily what you want to go with during a water fast, and particularly non-caloric. So if it has calories, if you're looking at the package and you're saying, I wonder if I could have this on a fast, the general rule of thumb to try to follow is, if there's caloric value to it, then you're not fasting anymore. The fasting is now not considered to really be, not really going to be as effective for you in that long haul. So if you feel like you want to fast and you want to do something with liquids, but you're not quite sure whether fasting is right for you, and you want to do something like a bone broth fast where there are some calories, so it's more of a restricted calorie fast, you certainly can do that. There's no wrong way to do this, but if you're trying to get the reset, you really want the liquid fast that is non-caloric, so no calories would be kind of the general rule to try to follow if you're attempting this fast. So again, that's number 2. So we've got the flush, then we've got the fast, and then the third strategy. And again, I told you I'd be talking. Some of you are gluten-free veterans, and some of you are like novices or rookies or new to this whole thing. And so strategy number 3 is that you can follow the protocol in No Grain, No Pain. No Grain, No Pain. If you're not familiar with it, this is my best-selling book, No Grain, No Pain. It's a 30-day diet protocol, and you stick to it. It's phase 1 and phase 2. The first 15 days are a little easier. The second 15 days are a little bit more restrictive in terms of diet. But following phase 1 and phase 2 through the No Grain, No Pain 30-day protocol works as a fantastic reset for your body to get you to a point where, if you have chronic inflammation issues, you get to a point where a lot of that subsides. So now you can make meaningful decisions about how you move forward. If you don't have a copy of No Grain, No Pain, you can pick it up at any Barnes & Noble or Amazon or major bookseller, or you can go down, if you don't have the money, you can go down to your public library and get a copy. It's in most major libraries across the U.S. So and it's published in a number of different languages. So those of you listening from across the pond, we've got a UK version, we've got a German, a Polish, a Turkish version, we've got a Chinese version. So if you're tuning in from other areas in the world, you can still get access to it in that way. But the no grain, no pain protocol will get your diet tightly dialed in, away from sugar, away from grains, and kind of help work that anti-inflammatory component that we're after for trying to get that reset. Again, what we're trying to do is reset your body and give it the opportunity to start to heal and repair as you move into the new year. Okay, number 4. Again, doesn't require a detoxification kit. It's sleep, but in particular, extra sleep. You know, most people have been told or have kind of the connotation that, 8 hours of sleep is ideal, inadequate. But when I say extra sleep, I mean more than 8 hours. So a lot of you neglect this component of your health. Most people I know say, oh, I'm only going to sleep 6 hours and I can still wake up and still get going. We're not talking about like being functional through life. We're talking about being healthy through life, right? And so sleep is very, very critical. Now, there are a couple of things to consider. Now, I'm suggesting here that if we're trying to really do a detox, that we're looking at 10 hours plus of sleep. So here, extra. So if we look at kind of baseline sleep is 8 hours, okay? Extra would be 10 hours. Now, some of you are maybe thinking, that's impossible. I have a job. I've got kids. I don't even get home till late at night. We really want to try to implement this, even if we're using the addition of naps. But what's more important even than the 8 or the 10 hours, if you can't get to the 10 hours, what's the most important is the timing of that sleep. So remember that between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 p.m., or sorry, 2 a.m., not p.m., this is when healing happens. So this is kind of the circadian healing zone. So the most important aspect of sleep is that you're asleep, meaning you are asleep, not getting in bed at 10, but asleep, snoozing, snoring, whatever that looks like for you, by 10 p.m. And you're at least asleep through the hour of 2 a.m. This has been really well studied. A number of research studies have shown that our best restorative sleep occurs between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you're going to bed at midnight or you're going to bed at 1, even if you're sleeping 8 hours, even if you're getting the 8 hours or the 10 hours, it's not as effective for healing and repair and restoration as being asleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Remember, your brain detoxes. So this is a big, big part of detoxification, especially a lot of you out there that have the brain fog or the cognitive decline, or you can't think straight, or you can't remember words, or you have trouble recalling things. Your brain detoxifies during this time frame. And so if you're not sleeping adequately, your brain doesn't have an opportunity to cleanse itself. So very, very important time frame. My advice is minimum time frame 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Combine that with a minimum of 8 hours, preferably 10 hours, because we're talking about detoxification reset. We're talking about extra sleep for extra repair. Remember, whether if you work out, whether you're chronically ill, or whether you're working out and you're healthy, the healing and the repairing occurs when you're asleep. It doesn't occur as a result of necessarily directly changing your diet, but it occurs when you're sleeping within that time frame. So sleep, again, it's one of the most ignored parts of the detoxification protocol. A lot of people think they can just swallow a bunch of pills and not get adequate sleep, and that those pills are somehow going to passively, magically cleanse their body and detoxify their body. But a lot of your detoxification occurs during this time frame while you're asleep. So you can't skimp out on the sleep component, because if you do, it's not going to be anywhere near as effective. Okay, number 5, exercise. Now, let's put in a key word here, exercise to tolerance. Some of you may be in terrible physical shape. Some of you may be CrossFitters. Some of you may be in great shape. Exercise is always done to your capacity to do it. So if you've got injuries, if you've got joint pain, if you've got plantar fasciitis or a knee issue or a hip issue, you've got to incorporate exercise around that issue that you're struggling with. You can't not exercise. Even if you have an injury, you still got to incorporate exercise. But your exercise might look different than someone else's. So for example, let's take somebody, I'm just using fibromyalgia as an example, or take somebody with fibromyalgia, chronic pain all over the body, and it hurts to lift weights, or it hurts to go to the gym and get on one of those leg machines and do leg presses. So that doesn't negate the fact that exercise is important for your health recovery. You've still got to be able to exercise. So it's got to be done to your tolerance. And so there are different strategies for exercise. And a lot of them we don't have time to get into tonight. We can do an entire, probably a week long of shows talking about different strategies for implementation of exercise to tolerance. But I just want you to know that meet your body where it's at. Don't try to push yourself with exercise. Don't try to jump into it too quickly or too aggressively. This is a mistake I see a lot of people make, is they go too deep too quickly and they end up injuring themselves, disrupting their cortisol, becoming injured, and then they can't exercise because now they have an injury that's plaguing them. So the exercise to tolerance is very important. So if you're in a really bad way, for you, exercise might look like a 5-minute walk. Like literally, it might look like a 5-minute walk and 10 toe touches and a couple of sit-ups. Like that might be what you're capable of tolerating, but you're going to implement something that you can tolerate. If you're in a little bit better shape, you might find that, okay, you can't go to the gym and lift heavy weights, but a rebounding trampoline is very helpful and is something that you can tolerate. So jumping or rebounding for 10 minutes might be the exercise that you're committing to. If you're in a little bit better shape than that, now you might start adding some body weight calisthenics like push-ups and sit-ups and squats and lunges and pull-ups and things of that nature, right? Where you're just using your body weight as the weight to help to reinforce this process. But it's always done to your ability to tolerate it. So if you're struggling with chronic adrenal fatigue or some type of massive injury, then you have to look at what it is that you can do and how you can work around your limitations until you break through those limitations. Now, many of you may have been struggling with this one for a really long time. This is, again, another big one that's oftentimes either people are misguided with it or people just don't implement it. So it might be a helpful strategy for you to work with an expert, somebody who's trained in the art of helping coach you through what exercise you should be doing if you have limitations. Now, if you don't have limitations and you know your body pretty well, then you just have work to do, right? And so then you just have to go to work. But if you're working with autoimmune limitations or other disease-like limitations, it's probably a good idea to work with a professional to help you through this. Now, the great thing about number 5 is it's actually a threefer. So number 5 leads to number 6 and 7 as well. So if we're exercising even to tolerance, it induces another component to detoxification that's very, very critical. And that component is sweating. One of the ways we detoxify is through our sweat. And what better way to sweat than to work out and to exercise, right? So some people will use, that can't tolerate exercise very aggressively, will use things like infrared. And I've got some great information about infrared technology and saunas on Gluten Free Society for those of you who want to read more, watch more videos on infrared. But some people opt to use infrared when they have exercise limitations where they have a limitation on their ability to sweat. So they're not sweaters, or they're proclaimed, I don't sweat even when I do exercise. The quickest way to break yourself, if you don't sweat when you exercise, the quickest way to break yourself of that is to exercise outdoors or outside. Now, maybe not if you're in Canada and it's 15 below zero right now, but if you're in an area even where the temperatures are as low as 40 or 50 degrees, exercising outside will help you work up the sweat easier than exercising in an air-conditioned environment where the temperature is being controlled. So if you can't sweat, or you have a capacity where you're not able to work up enough or generate enough heat to sweat because you have an exercise issue or an injury, then infrared might be a good option to help induce sweating. But sweating is a very important part of the way we detox. Sweat is how we get rid of chemicals. Sweat is how we expel different agents from the bloodstream and from the body. So very important. And so exercise helps with that. That's why exercise is that threefer. Now, the other thing that exercise helps us do is it helps us to breathe. And we're running out of room, so I'm going to put number 7 up here. But it helps us to breathe. And breathing is very, very important because it's also how we detox. When we breathe out, we're actually breathing out toxins and chemicals. We sweat them out, we poop them out, we pee them out, and we breathe them out. And so those pathways need to be working effectively if you're going to have an effective detoxification program. And so exercise basically it forces us to need to breathe better. A lot of times, those of you that, maybe you have a desk job and you sit at a desk, sometimes people they're shallow, their shoulders are hunched forward, they're at a computer desk, their lung capacity is reduced by 20-30% just because of their posture, and they're forgetting to breathe and they're not breathing. So they're not getting the full capacity at detoxification. This is one of the reasons why meditation and deep breathing exercises can be so beneficial, is because bringing that oxygen in, that not only does it help regulate and upregulate the metabolic machinery, part of your mitochondria and other systems within your body that help. They need energy to help drive toxins out of the body, so that oxygen is important for energy production. But it's also important as you breathe out to get rid of toxins. So again, deep breathing exercises, deep breathing can be effective. So even if you exercise, you will be deep breathing. You'll definitely be breathing more than if you're not exercising. But if you're not exercising because of a tolerance issue, or your exercise is minimum, so your breathing is going to be somewhat limited in terms of this capacity, then what you can implement is a deep breathing exercise. And there are a number of different strategies, but my advice is before every meal, spend about 3 to 5 minutes doing deep breathing exercises. So deep breathing, very simple, kind of basic strategy would be breathe in, take 3 to 5 seconds to take in a big, deep breath, hold it for 3 seconds, and then slowly expel it over the course of about 5 seconds. So breathe it in, hold it for about 3 seconds, breathe it out over the course of about 5 seconds. Very, very controlled, very relaxed breathing. What that's going to help you do before your meal, if you time it in that way, is it's going to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, activate your digestion, and help you digest your food better. And so it's going to help you get better nourishment and better nutrients from the food that you're eating. But deep breathing is also going to help you to detoxify. So these are 7 strategies. Again, they don't require any type of massive supplement kits where you're doing all these different things, foot baths, all this other stuff that is more gimmicky than actually effective. These are tried and true, clinically proven strategies that will help you start off your new year in a more healthful fashion, especially those of you trying to overcome a self-toxication that might have occurred during the holiday time. So all that being said, I'm going to open up the floor for your questions. So let's see what we've got here. Brigitte, hello, Dr. Osborne. Happy New Year. Thanks, Brigitte. The Detox C you carry is a great one. My son healed from the flu very fast with the C Flush protocol. Love it. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's what I was talking about earlier, where we were talking about the vitamin C protocol. That's the protocol that we use. Soon wants to know, can I use the vitamin C Flush while water only fasting? You can. And actually, as a matter of fact, the way I recommend that you start a fast is the day of the fast that you're starting, because vitamin C doesn't have calories, is flush. And flush the first thing in the morning, and that's your fasting. Your fasting began that morning, and when you do the flush, you're still in a fast, and then you're just taking that fast out for 24 hours or longer. So yes, you can do the C Flush while fasting, and I actually recommend doing the C Flush to begin your fast to expel the toxins out of your body a lot better. Now, that being said, remember the limitations on the flush. Those of you with ulcerations or major hemorrhoids might not be the smartest thing to do in those particular scenarios. And so for those of you who have those problems, skip this one and go straight into the fasting. But yes, you can do them together. Chris wants to know, can a flush be easier done with magnesium? It's not about it being easier or harder, Chris. It's more about we're using the vitamin C specifically for several reasons. Vitamin C has a number of different effects, and we're using that vitamin C, and we're trying to flood your system with vitamin C. Vitamin C is a fuel source for your immune cells. It helps activate T killer cells and natural killer cells in your body. Vitamin C acts as a natural antihistamine. So again, what we're talking about is detoxification. So if you spent your holidays not making the best food choices or bringing in too much, that vitamin C has a lot of other functions that's going to help with those types of scenarios where magnesium is not. So it's not an issue of whether or not because you could certainly take enough magnesium to cause diarrhea. But we're using vitamin C specifically for its anti-inflammatory properties, for its antihistamine properties, for its properties in healing the gut, for its properties in generating glutathione, which helps upregulate liver detoxification. So vitamin C is being chosen very specifically for its biochemical properties versus, let's say, a magnesium. Let's see, Linda, would the vitamin C flush work for someone having to do a colonoscopy? Last time it was Miralax and Crystal Light. Are you serious? Oh my gosh. Was that your doctor's recommendation? That's terrible advice. Vitamin C works great to clean out the bowel. I've had a lot of people report really great results prior to their colonoscopy. That being said, I'm not your GI doctor. I don't want to give you medical advice. If you're going to use a vitamin C flush as a colonoscopy prep, you definitely want to clear that with your GI doctor. Okay, let's see here. Killian, I'm 29, had RA, wanted to heal without meds, but had bone deformations everywhere, which was hell. I stopped eating all except grass-fed chicken and avocado, but what now? I'm afraid of getting crippled. Killian, you know, you didn't mention what medications that you were on, but many of those medications actually contribute to leaky gut, which then subsequently contribute to perpetuation of rheumatological arthritis. So my advice to you, if you're just asking about diet advice, Killian, is follow the no grain, no pain protocol. So going back to what I talked about here, number 3, that no grain, no pain protocol will probably be one of the best things that you could do from a diet perspective without having any additional information specifically about you and your history. So, but even more importantly, Killian, if you're worried and you've got a lot of bone deformation or malformation or inflammation, get with a functional medicine doctor and don't guess at this. Don't play around with it. Really get the help that you need, because it's not something you want to mess around with. You're a young man. And if you've already got, and you know, you say bone deformation, I'm going to assume you mean bone erosions and things of that nature, which is common in rheumatological disease and arthritis. You don't want to mess around. So you need to get aggressive with it. And you can put it in remission without medication, but you can't put it in remission without medication if you don't have a doctor who's willing to look at your diet, your lifestyle, your chemical exposures, the potential for infection like Lyme or other bacteria that can also cause rheumatological arthritis, and look at your nutritional status. Like, those things are critical and key in order to overcome autoimmune arthritis. Now, let's see. Deandra says we still have a box of GMO candies someone gave to my husband. It used to be my favorite, so had some a couple of days and made me sluggish and brain fogged. I stopped eating it. Yeah, you know, people are going to do that during the holidays. Don't beat yourself up too bad. Learn the lesson though. So like next year, you know, remember that. Remember how it made you feel, and that will make you better and better at being able to say no when you are tempted with some of these things. Any thoughts on the use of salt blocks applied to the soles of the feet for detoxification? Not really, Mike. I don't have much experience with that. So really, it's not an area where I could say I'm an expert in detoxification using salt blocks. I can tell you these strategies are tried and true. And when I said gimmicky strategies, there are a lot of gimmicky things that are out there that, that don't have a lot of scientific validation, or at least not a lot of scientific understanding. Doesn't mean they might not work for somebody, but and I would put salt block kind of in that arena. Don't have enough science behind them for me to be able to stand up here and suggest them on a broad spectrum. Let's see here. Can someone tell me, is quinoa gluten-free okay to eat for someone gluten sensitive? Not really, Naomi, or Noemi. I don't know how you pronounce that. But quinoa, there was a study done in 2012 on quinoa proteins, and what they found in several different varieties of quinoa, there were 2 particular proteins found in quinoa that actually mimicked gluten bad enough that it created a gluten reaction in people with gluten sensitivity. So I generally don't recommend that people eat quinoa when they've been diagnosed with a gluten issue or when they have a gluten issue, because of, one, the research, but also my clinical experience to see people, and over the last 20 years, I've seen so many people reacting to quinoa in a negative way. So it's just not something I recommend. Let's see here. Kelly, I have to take levothyroxine every morning with water 1 hour before I eat or drink. When should I take the vitamin C? With the thyroid, or 1 hour after? Yeah, the vitamin C comes after the thyroid medication. What you want to make sure is that, there should be your pharmacist or your doctor that prescribed that medication should have told you that it's generally a 1 to 2 hour window with a thyroid medication before you eat or before you ingest anything else, so that you don't have anything interfering with the absorption of that medication. Let's see. Thank you. Usually around the end. Let's see. Does a flush completely empty the bowels? What happens to gut flora after a flush? Not a whole lot. You don't really impact the gut flora. We've actually tested that because that was one of my first questions when I was introduced to the flush many years ago. Is we tested people's bowels before and after a flush and found that it really didn't affect their diversity of their flora and didn't really minimize or reduce their flora. Does liposomal glutathione cross the blood-brain barrier? Depends. Not necessarily. But it can for some people who have leaky brain. And one of the problems with people that have a leaky gut is that it usually perpetuates and creates a blood-brain barrier leakage as well. Let's see here. In ADHD, the circadian rhythm is different. People are most awake and alive during hours 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. I've been trying to sleep early for decades, but even at school, I never slept before 1. Killian, are you colorblind? And I don't say that. I say that because people that have color blindness generally can see at night. And so there's like an evolutionary adaptation that color blindness actually would be a genetic reason why somebody might be considered classically more of a night person. But ADHD, no, that you maybe have developed habits that make you a night person and that's been called ADHD. But I would generally argue that ADHD is not really a viable medical condition. It's a very subjective diagnosis, and there's no definitive markers that say this person has ADHD or this person doesn't. Most cases of ADHD I've ever seen, the people had the problems because of what they were eating, not necessarily because of a disease state. So if you've been trying for decades, and I think, Killian, you're also the one that with rheumatoid arthritis, you have autoimmunity, you have an autoimmune problem. And so you've got to get serious about your diet and your lifestyle. And I go back to what I recommended earlier, which is no grain, no pain, to get you moving in the right direction. Let's see. We got another question about what about vitamins during the fast from Dave. Great question, Dave. Not necessarily. Remember, vitamins are non-caloric and you can take them. But here's the issue. For some people, B vitamins particularly can cause nausea on an empty stomach. So if you're using vitamins like a multi or B complex and you find that when you take it during a fast, you're getting nauseous and your stomach is upset, then just don't worry about taking the supplements during the fast. So again, when you're trying to attempt a fast, remember, we're not doing, fast forever. We're just doing a program fast for anywhere from 1 to 3 days potentially, or even multiple fasts over the course of a month, but split out over the course of time. So you'll have opportunity to take vitamins in between to help to support your healing process. Wanda wants to know, can I still take my vitamins and herbal supplement? Okay, so same question, during the fasting, or would it diminish the effect of the vitamin C detox? Now, your vitamins are probably not going to diminish the effect of the vitamin C detox. It's just that you don't necessarily need to take all of your supplements during a fasting protocol. Again, if we're talking about a 24-hour fast, it's just 1 day without supplements. It's not going to make or break your success. Andrew wants to know, detoxifying good for kickstarting testosterone? It can be, Andrew. There are some research studies that show that the benefits of fasting actually can reduce sex hormone binding globulin and improve testosterone levels in men. So yes, yes, to answer your question, it can. Does it for everyone? I think that could be debated, but definitely there's research that alludes to the effect that fasting can have on improvements in testosterone. Can zeolite be used to detox the brain from mercury? Mary wants to know. Zeolites are basically, they're rock-like compounds that have a really high surface area, a lot like charcoal, only greater. They have a greater surface area than charcoal and can be used for detoxification. So in that regard, to answer your question, zeolite can be used, and a lot of practitioners use them. I would say if you're worried about mercury in your brain, you probably should work with somebody who's experienced in that arena, because and that can give you some objective data as to whether or not it's something that you need to be doing. I like that. Ruth says, breathe as if your life depends on it. Yes, it does. Okay. Let's see. Gene says, hi, I'm already eating one meal a day, one big meal a day around 2:30 and snack at 6 or so. Can I still add in a 24-hour fast with no problem? Yes, you can. Remember, the point of a fast is the break. So if you're eating one big meal a day at 2:30, you're already kind of 24-hour fasting, Gene. So what you may want to attempt to do is do a kind of a longer fast. And so, and those of you listening that don't know what one meal a day principle, one meal a day type of fasting strategy is an intermittent fasting strategy. It's basically where you're basically fasting for almost 24 hours, but you're eating one big meal a day. And that one big meal has just as many calories as you would eat in the normal course of a day. So it's not a calorically restricted diet. It's just a time constrained meal. And so again, the difference between, like a one meal a day aspect versus, let's just say, a 24-hour, if you're already used to one meal a day type of component, then you're already reaping the benefit from that 24-hour piece. So it's just an issue of, if you feel like you need to detox a little bit further, you can take that out 2 or even possibly 3 days, or again, under supervision, you can push it out even longer and see what that does for you. But I like to fast regularly. I like the 24-hour fast on a semi-regular basis, a few times a month, for the most part, mainly because of the benefits of fasting. So you can actually take in these benefits on a regular basis. You don't have to, toxify yourself for a holiday meal and then jump to a detox. You can actually take advantage of what fasting has to offer your body. There are a lot of benefits physiologically to fasting. Does orange, I'm not sure I understand your question, Shireen. Does orange good for cleaning out the gut? In essence, I think what you're asking is, are oranges good for cleaning out the gut? No, not really, but maybe that's not what you meant. So maybe if you re-ask that question, I can answer it better. Andrew wants to know if saline water helps. Drinking a liter of water with a tablespoon of sea salt. More than anything, it's not that it helps flush out your intestines. I mean, water is a great flushing tool, but it helps prevent dehydration, and it helps keep your salt levels up, especially those of you who might be on certain medications that can lower your salt, especially blood pressure medications. I fasted for 7 days, took 3 grams sodium ascorbate with minerals once or twice per day occasionally. Found NAC made me weak and sleepy after the 3-day mark. Felt all right overall, though. Thanks for sharing your experience, Acetal. Yeah, when you get extended, when you go for 7, you're going to get tired. And during a fast, if you're doing a 24-hour fast, you can do all these other things as well. But you get beyond that, you're not going to want to do a 3 or a 7-day fast where you're trying to exercise during that time frame. Those are times, if you choose or opt for a much longer fast. And that's why I say do it with supervision, because you really want to have, it's like taking your vacation to do a fast. You take 7 days off and you do this fast because you're going to be really tired. And most of you are going to be really tired and lethargic after about day 4. You're going to kind of go numb. But the first few days, it can be a real big challenge. And then once you kind of get past day 4, it can get easier. But some people report just the opposite. So it depends. But again, I don't recommend those extended fasting without some type of supervision if you don't have experience with it. Oscar wants to know, is it healthy to eat 3,000 to 4,000 calories with 75% fat if you eat once a day and are exercising much for the benefits of fasting? Depends on who you are, Oscar. I mean, diet is very unique to the person. So that 3,000 to 4,000 calories is very generalized and very generic. Many people, it depends on what you're eating as the calories. So, for example, I've had clients that were allergic to broccoli and cauliflower and blueberries. And so if that 3,000 to 4,000 calories was inclusive of something you were allergic to, then no, it's not healthy. But if it's foods that are healthy, I would say that diet is a little bit high in fat. Definitely probably more along the lines of a high fat keto type of diet. And some people aren't cut out for that to that degree. And some people are. So again, there are a lot of biochemical individual differences that I would hate to say, generally speaking, that that's healthy or that it isn't healthy. What about coffee and detox? Coffee doesn't have calories. So from that perspective, coffee's okay. But where you got to be careful about coffee is the pesticide. Coffee's rich in pesticide unless you're buying organic versions. Coffee can also be high in mycotoxins or mold toxins. So you definitely want to look for a brand that is known for its organic bean, but also known for its mold testing. If you go to glutenfreesociety.org to the shop, there are a couple of brands that we recommend there. that are solid brands that do these types of tests. Let's see here. I like this. Jarvis says, have you ever observed red skin patches mainly on the arms following showers, and if detoxifying was ever a remedy for this? In my experience, and I've seen this quite a bit, Jarvis, the red splotches or patches on the arms or on the body in general after a shower might be due to something called chloramine. A number of city municipal water companies have gone from using chlorine to using a substance called chloramine because it's cheaper. And so chloramines irritate the skin. It's very much a skin irritant. So if you don't have a shower head filter on your shower head, you might attempt that first. Get a good carbon KDF shower head filter and see if that doesn't reduce the spots occurring after the shower. But a lot of times it's what's in your water specifically that's creating that type of rash. Let's see. Susan wants to know, what could you do to boost your liver, gallbladder, and kidney function if you do all the strategies you've recommended already? It's a great question. So if you wanted to boost your liver, eat liver as part of your diet. The nutrients found in like a grass-fed beef liver or lamb or something along that line are going to be the very nutrients that your liver needs to maintain its own health and nutritional status. As far as your gallbladder, if you want to, depends on when you say boost your liver or gallbladder, so to boost them would, again, this is just my thinking, would infer that there's a problem with them in the first place. If you have a healthy functioning liver and gallbladder, there's no need to boost them. If you are diagnosed with, let's just say, a cirrhosis or a fatty liver problem or a gallbladder problem, then there certainly are a lot of natural medicine strategies that can be implemented and utilized that will help them. One of the best things for liver is milk thistle. Just as an agent, it's very hepatoprotective. The milk thistle itself, the silymarin, which is one of the active ingredients in milk thistle, is very hepatoprotective, meaning it protects your liver cells. Citrus juice in warm water is very good to help stimulate bile release from the gallbladder. So if you've got a sluggish gallbladder, those are things that you could do. As far as kidney function, fluids, just making sure you have plenty of fluids coming in. During a detox like this, you want to make sure you're peeing about 4 to 6 times a day as kind of a general rule of thumb. If you're going once or twice, you're probably not going enough, and all those toxins that you're trying to pull out are just going to kind of continue to circulate through your body. But I mean, there are a number of different things you can do to boost function if function is inadequate. But if function is adequate, I don't really necessarily recommend taking a whole bunch of stuff. This is the whole thing, right? All these people are out there doing all these detox kits, and half the things they're doing they don't even really need. And look, I'm as natural and as open-minded as they come. I've been practicing, functional medicine for 20 years now, and I've just not seen any great impact from doing detox kits and supplements without implementing these strategies. And so that's where it started, was when I was young and somewhat a naive practitioner. I was using detox kits, probably like a lot of other ones. But once we started implementing more of this, I found that those supplemental strategies weren't really what was creating the magic. What was creating the magic was the behavioral change and the lifestyle change and the implementation of those things. So don't underestimate the power of your body's capacity to heal itself when you start freeing up its resources to be able to take out the trash. Will taking systemic proteolytic enzymes break the fast? No. No, they won't, because systemic proteolytic enzymes are not going to be broken down like protein and crunched into calories. They're actually going to be absorbed whole into your bloodstream and have a systemic effect on inflammation and other things. So you can take systemic enzymes to do during a fast. Donna wants to know, is it good to do vitamin C detox for mold and candida overgrowth? Yes, I do it very, very frequently in people that have those issues. Let's see, I've been using, oh no, not that. Do you have any thoughts on coffee enemas for detoxifying the liver? Yeah, they work great. If you've got major liver problems or cancer, coffee enema is a really good implementation strategy to help your liver literally take out the trash. What's my opinion on azole antifungals, itraconazole, nystatin, and clotrimazole for mold overgrowth? I don't think they work as well as natural agents. In my experience, natural agents work far better than the azole antifungals or the nystatin. I get people all the time that come to see me that have been on those antifungals for years and to no effect, and they still have yeast overgrowth until we actually dial in their diet, no grain, no pain style, find out what they're allergic to, and really go after it. But I believe even more specifically, like if you think you have a yeast overgrowth or you're fairly certain you have a yeast overgrowth, ask your doctor to do a sensitivity test to the yeast that you have, meaning they can do what's called a culture sensitivity, where they can tease out your yeast and identify the species and then try to determine what will best kill it. So like, for example, I've had a number of clients come in to see me that were taking massive doses of oregano because it's a popular antifungal, but it weren't getting any better because their particular yeast was resistant to oregano. So just like a bacteria can be antibiotic resistant, fungus or yeast can be, antifungal resistant, including to some of these natural agents. So if you have an infection or an overgrowth and you're trying to deal with it, then you've never done culture sensitivity to see what would the best way for you to deal with it was, that would be a great next step in the process of getting more specific. Andrew, thanks for sharing your experience. Andrew did a 3-day water fast and found that his sensitivity to insulin really improved. So what if a person doesn't have any weight to lose and having to fast because they feel great relief when they fast? Look, fasting is not about weight loss. Let's make no mistake. Now, 51% of the population is overweight, but I'm not recommending fasting as a weight loss strategy. You don't see weight loss anywhere on this board. You see detox on that board. And so a lot of times when people feel better when they fast, it's because they're giving the GI tract a break because their gut has either a leaky or permeable lining. And so what they're eating is leaking into their bloodstream, creating systemic inflammation, or they're eating foods that they're allergic to, or they're being exposed to chemicals within their foods that are creating an inflammatory response. And so the act of not eating takes away the things that's creating the problem, and so they feel better. But it's not about weight loss. Weight loss, let me just put it like this, weight regulation, normal body weight, is a side effect of health. So the healthier you are, it's not, again, a lot of people go new year, new you, right? And they're doing these detoxes and they want to do weight loss, and weight loss is the big focus. And that's foolhardy and foolish. Weight loss should never be the main goal. That's a vanity reason. And not that you can't have vanity reasons. We all want to look good and feel good in our own skin, but you should want to be healthy first and foremost. And that desire to obtain or to achieve health has to outweigh your desire for weight loss, because people make a lot of bad decisions in the name of weight loss. Look at all the diet fads that we've gone through just in the last 30 or 40 years, and some of them very, very detrimental. Some of the pills that doctors prescribe to suppress the appetite and some of the stimulants and other things that people have done that have, damaged the heart tissue and other things, all in the name of weight loss. Look, whatever we choose to do with our body, the first aspect of it be, will this help me achieve health or will this not help me achieve health? And if the answer is, no, it won't help me achieve health, but it'll help me achieve weight loss, then you shouldn't be thinking about doing it. You should stop that and don't have your focus on weight loss. Yvette wants to know, what other nutrients besides B2, magnesium, and fish oil is needed for ADHD? Lots of them. I mean, all the B vitamins are important for methylation, for the methylation process, and for energetics. But even more importantly, Yvette, it's not even so much what nutrients are necessary as much as is what foods trigger the symptoms of ADHD. As if you were paying attention to what I said earlier, ADHD is not even, in my opinion, not even it's not a real objective diagnosis. It's a subjective diagnosis. And what that means is it's somebody's opinion of what you have. It's not really a disease per se. So generally when people have the symptoms of ADHD, what they really have is they have biochemical aberration that's being caused either by lack of nutrients or by consumption of chemicals that disrupt their biochemistry, or by consumption of foods that they're reactive to. And so that's really where your wheelhouse of investigation needs to be if you want to try to really figure that out. Okay. Can you talk a bit into infrared Red light, is it the same? So infrared particularly is a particular wavelength of light that's emitted that penetrates deep into the skin that helps to emulate a fever. That's actually one of the things that helps is emulate a fever. So it can increase the temperature. And so if if you've got bacteria or other things, it can be helpful in that regard. But infrared is designed to penetrate deeper to pull toxin out of the skin. So not quite the same thing as like a red light therapy. An infrared is generally, it's a whole body therapy of light that encases your body and basically heats it up. I did a whole show with a really good expert on infrared, Chris. If you want to go back into the archives and just type in detox and infrared, you should be able to pull that show up. Effective detox for heavy metals. Boy, it depends on what heavy metal, because certain things pull some metals but don't pull other metals. So, more specifically, which metals are you referring to? And I can give you kind of a better answer. But it's like, for example, if it's heavy metal like lead, one of the best things that pulls lead is EDTA. EDTA pulls lead. Chlorella kind of pulls lead. Pectin can pull lead. Alpha lipoic acid is helpful. Vitamin C is helpful. There are a number of natural agents, but EDTA is probably one of the most effective for pulling lead. Now, mercury is a different story. DMSO and DMSA are probably better and more effective at pulling mercury. Zeolites can help. Charcoal can help as well. So again, it just depends on the type of metal that you're really referring to. Silicates can be helpful for detoxification if you've got an aluminum problem. So, Chip, this question always comes up. How about a day in the life of Dr. Osborne from eating and exercise? It's really kind of simple. My strategy is keeping it simple. I'm very stoic about food. What I mean by that is look, I don't need big, huge gourmet this or gourmet that. I eat a lot of the same things as they're in season. So like this morning, for example, I fasted until about noon o'clock, and I generally will do that. I generally won't eat my first meal until about 11:30. So I eat my dinner the night before, is usually around 6:30 or 7. Tonight it'll be a little bit later because I'm talking to you nice folks, but generally it's a little bit earlier than that, and then I won't eat again until the following day. So generally I'm at least fasting 16 to 18 hours, and then I have all my meals within like the 6-hour window over the course of the day. But for me today, what did breakfast look like? It looked like a big chard and spinach and pumpkin seed and sweet potato, actually Japanese sweet potato, and some sliced chicken breast over the top with blueberries as my dressing. So nothing fancy, just really, really stoic about it. But I had a pretty big bowl of that. It's probably about 8 ounces of chicken. If we want to get into serving sizes, we could do that too, because I usually will count those types of things out just to kind of see where I'm falling. And then a lot of times for my midday, I'll have a protein shake with grass-fed beef protein. It's actually one of my own formulations. It's called Ultra Pure Protein, and I'll put some collagen powder in that protein as well. And that's just to help me, because in the morning early, what I like to do is I like to do CrossFit style workouts. So high intensity interval training with body weight activity or body weight exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, lunges, sit-ups, plank holds, sprints, whatever kind of fits the mood of the day. I usually program my workouts, and then, my workouts are generally under 30 minutes, a 10 to 15 minute warm up, followed by a high intensity routine of about 8 to 15 minutes. And then, so that's my morning. And then I come into, my lunch around noon, which I just told you what I ate today. And then tonight I'm going to go home and I'll probably eat a big, huge plate of vegetables and some form of meat. Maybe it'll be fish, maybe it'll be beef. It just depends on what it is tonight. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian. I do eat meat. Some of you I know are trying to follow vegetarian diets, and that's fine. But that's kind of a day of meals for me. Usually 2, not really more than 2 meals, but just a lot of calories within the meals that I do eat. Good question, Chip. Okay, I think we're running down the clock here. So let's see. We had one more I wanted to answer. My thoughts on iron overload. Iron overload is not all that common. Where iron overload becomes a problem, there's a disease called called hemochromatosis, Oscar, and that those individuals genetically have an increased risk for iron overload. But as a general rule of thumb, iron overload is not a huge problem. The bigger problem is actually iron deficiency. It's in people that I deal with. Now, I'm not saying that I could answer that question for the entire world, but the people that come to see me generally are gluten sensitive, have iron deficiency anemias in a very, very big way because of the damage that's been done to their GI tracts over many, many years. So in my experience, iron overload is generally not the cause of illness. It's generally the opposite. It's iron deficiency that's contributing to their anemias and their inability to get adequate oxygen and to heal their own inner tissues. That being said, iron overload can happen. Iron overload happens in cases where people have chronic inflammation and iron levels are sequestered different in the body, and they can develop kind of an oxidative process, especially if they think they're anemic and they start taking extra iron when they actually don't need it. But it's pretty rare to see iron overload without somebody just generally supplementing or eating a lot of processed food that's been fortified with iron. And in that regard, it's not really iron overload so much as it is the processed food, at least not in my experience. So hopefully that helps you understand what I think about iron overload. Last question, how many ounces of meat do I recommend in a week? It's not a matter of ounces so much. It depends on what your goals are, Michael. So, for me, there are certain goals that I'm trying to obtain. I mean, there's certain aspects of probably what you're doing that you're trying to obtain. So, during the winter months, I'm not quite so worried as much. I'll let my body fat composition rise a little bit higher during the winter months. And I don't worry so much about it because it's natural to allow for a little bit more fat in the winter. But in the summer times, I like to lean up a little bit, partly because of vanity. So that's one of my vain reasons that I want to try to lean up in the summer, just like everyone else does. So I'll look at the quantities and the carbohydrate, fat, protein ratios of what I'm eating a little bit more aggressively at those times. But as far as in a general week, there's not really an aspect of how many ounces of meat. Generally, what I like to look at it is how many grams of protein that you're actually trying to achieve in the course of a day. So you can get protein from vegetables too. And so it's not just how many ounces of meat. But I generally will eat on a daily basis at least 8 ounces of meat, and many days a lot more than that, if that gives you kind of an idea of where to think about starting. Okay, well, that's it. We've gone over again. So I appreciate your viewership tonight, and appreciate you guys coming back week in and week out to spend time with me on Monday evenings. If you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you'll get notified every time we go live. We do about 7 videos a week beyond this live show, so make sure you subscribe to my channel either way so that you can get updates when those new videos come out and stay abreast of the latest and greatest health and nutritional information so that you can keep yourself and your families healthy. Remember our mission here, and if you'll do me a favor before we say goodnight tonight, is if you'll type in your feed, type in hashtag save 100 million lives. And this is how I'd like you to do it if you would. Hashtag save 100 million lives. No spaces in this. That's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach 100 million people. That's my goal. That's my legacy that I'm trying to leave, and help 100 million people find information that's meaningful, that's fruitful, that's going to help them overcome their health challenges and help get them out of doctors' offices and empower themselves to take control of their own lives and their own health. So help me by typing that in so that people can find us a lot better. And we will see you next Monday night for another show. And if you've got topic requests, don't be a stranger. Chime in what you'd like us to talk about, and we'll do our best this year, 2020, to get it in the books for you. This is Dr. Osborne wishing you excellent health. Have a great evening. We'll see you next week. Hey, don't forget to tune in next week, same time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, for another Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain show. Bring all your toughest health questions to me. I look forward to answering them. And before you leave today, make sure you hit subscribe. And once you do, click that bell. That bell is going to allow us to remind you right before we go live. But it's also going to allow us to remind you when we come out with other video content all week long. We've got lots of episodes coming your way all week long, and I don't want you to miss anything. So again, subscribe, hit that bell so that you can get notified when we have that new information put up for you. Thanks so much, and I'm wishing you excellent health Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday night.